making his first competitive start in more than a decade. Golf Channel analyst Brandel Chamblee opened with a 5/77 Thursday at the Senior Open. Chamblee, 56, turned in 1 over but made bogeys on nose 12, 14, 15, 16 and 17 before a closing birdie. When he finished his round, he was 12 shots off the lead at St Andrews. Full field scores from the Senior Open. Chamblee earned his spot in the field by taking co-medalist honors in a qualifier at Scotscraig on Monday, a day after completing his on-air duties for the 147th Open at Carnoustie. This is Chamblee's PGA Tour Champions debut. He last played a PGA Tour event in 2008 at Pebble Beach. Jean Van de Velde was inside the ropes at last week's Open Championship, with golf spikes on, though of course he wasn't part of the competition. Only former Open winners can play until they're 60. He blew that chance 19 years ago. Now, he's a part-time on-course TV reporter for Canal in France. Across 4 days at Carnoustie he walked with the final groups, whispering his commentary into a microphone, trying to ignore the ghosts. Even after all of these years, fans almost immediately recognized the now bearded 52-year-old, the hard-luck loser of the 1999 Open who'd starred in the most bizarre finish in major championship history. Late in the second round, as Van de Velde marched to the 18th tee, a young American fan, maybe 10 years old, blurted out to his father, "Hey, isn't that the guy who choked?" It's impossible to know how many times Van de Velde heard that throughout the week, but nonetheless he smiled and posed for photos, a model of grace and perspective. The 152nd ranked player in the world at the time of his collapse, he is undoubtedly more famous in defeat than he'd ever have been in victory. Those looking to hide from a humiliating incident don't resurface to do commentary at Carnoustie, at his own personal house of horrors. They don't continue to play in the Senior Open. And they certainly don't rehire their former caddy, the one who was skewered for not properly guiding his boss to the clubhouse when all he needed on the last was a double bogey 6. Full field scores from the Senior Open in oral history of the 18th hole at the 1999 Open, but guess who was on Van de Velde's bag as the Senior Open got underway Thursday? Christophe Angiolini. The infamous caddy from '99. "I said, how about you come caddy for me," Van de Velde recalled recently. And he said, "You bet, so that will be fun." They teamed up for a 1/73 Thursday in what is believed to be the first time they've been on the same team since their short-lived partnership ended in August 1999. Earlier that year, Angiolini, in just his third year as a professional caddy, was looping for Fabrice Tarna when he heard that Van de Velde was looking for a new bagman. Van de Velde and Angiolini began working together in April '99 and instantly hit it off. The Open that year presented arguably the most difficult major test in recent memory, an over-the-top setup and horrific weather leading scores to soar on the most demanding links in the Rota. Some of the biggest names in the game tumbled out of contention, but the little-known Van de Velde rode a scorching hot putter and led by 5 after 54 holes. Though he coughed up the lead to Craig Parry midway through the final round, Van de Velde regained his advantage and headed to the 72nd hole with a 3-shot lead. We all remember what happened next. Van de Velde had played aggressively all week off the tee, so he chose driver. He didn't want to flirt with the burn short of the green, so he chose 2-iron for his approach. He didn't want to take on the out-of-bounds left, so he chose to hack out straight ahead with his 3rd shot. He thought about playing his 4th from the berry burn, and even rolled up his pant legs and stepped into the water, but he chose to take a drop because the tide was coming in. The entire ordeal was captivating, maddening, farcical. Van de Velde's downward spiral resulted in a triple bogey 7 and eventual playoff loss to Paul Lawrie. Searching for an explanation, players, caddies, commentators and journalists pointed to Angiolini. They said he acted negligently. He said it was his choice and that the caddy didn't make the final decision, so it was his responsibility. Angiolini recalled earlier this year. My responsibility should be proportionate to my percentage. I earned 7.5% of his earnings, so in my mind, my responsibility is 7.5%. Even amid the torrent of criticism, Van de Velde never publicly blamed his caddy. Of course I felt bad, Van de Velde said. How many people go through the trauma or the difficulty that we went through? I felt sorry for him. That final round was heartbreaking for Angiolini, but he recalls Van de Velde being downright buoyant. The runner-up finish at the Open meant that he'd not only qualified for the European Ryder Cup team, but he'd earned his PGA Tour card for the following season. It had always been Angiolini's dream to caddy in the Ryder Cup and on tour in the States. He even got fitted for all of the team gear. But he never made the trip to Brookline. After the Open, they lasted only 3 more events together, with Van de Velde firing him in August '99, a few weeks before the matches. I didn't think it was difficult to continue together. Angiolini said, I don't think he is the one who made the decision to let me go. I think it was more the pressure from the media he got after that. His agent, too. Each time he went to a major, he'd be asked if he had the same caddy. It wasn't easy to manage to always face the same question, the pressure. Maybe he had a hard time. It was difficult to accept, but I wasn't mad at him, added Van de Velde. We have no grudge toward each other. It was just such a difficult time, and we needed to go our separate ways and process it in our own directions. Van de Velde won only once more on the European Tour, in 2006, and never again challenged in a major. Angiolini soon picked up another bag, but he bounced around the tour for a number of years. He'd hoped to return to Carnoustie this year with a French player named Thomas Linard, but they didn't advance through qualifying. That allowed Angiolini to focus on another major, to another shot at redemption with his former boss. It's a long shot, maybe even more so than their magical run in '99, but crazier things have happened on the ancient links. Unfortunately, they know that all too well. The Ryder Cup is still months away, but Thursday at the Porsche European Open had an old-timey cup feel to it. Patrick Reed was getting ready to hit his third shot on the par 4 10th when his caddy motioned towards the remote camera crew. Reed then moved away from his ball and his caddy said, "You're rattling change in your pocket." "That's what I'm pointing at you for." Reed asked for the camera crew to move away from him, saying, "He lost privileges by going like that with change. I'm not hitting until y'all get the heck out of here." Full field scores from the Porsche European Open. Once the crew moved far enough to Reed's liking, the Masters champ pitched to within a few feet of the hole and saved par. He bogeyed the next hole to fall back to even for the tournament. Rattling change in one's pocket has long been seen as a way of purposefully distracting a player, though the camera crew's intentions were not known. Ryder Cup great Seve Ballesteros was known to have an untimely and reoccurring cough during matches. Reed, of course, is one of America's best Ryder Cup players and will be on the U.S. team for this year's matches in France. Article tags, Patrick Reed, 2018 Porsche European Open. It was looking a lot like 1995 on Thursday at the old course, at least for a few hours. John Daly, who won the '95 Open Championship at St Andrews, got off to a brilliant start in round 1 of the Senior Open. After a bogey at the second, he made birdie at the par 4 third and then made eagle 3 at the par 5 fifth. He continued that run with birdies on nose, 6 and 7, and then added another at the par 3 11th. Full field scores from the Senior Open. Daly was at 5 under par and challenging for the lead. But the inward 9 proved more difficult as players turned into a stiff wind. Daly bogeyed the 12th and 15th holes and parred in for a 3 under 69. He finished the day 4 shots off the lead, held by Kurt Triplett. Daly has struggled with his right knee since a freak accident in April, when a car crashed into his RV in a parking lot during Masters Week. Did not compete in the U.S. Senior Open when the USGA denied him the use of a cart. He also withdrew prior to the start of last week's Open Championship at Carnoustie. Article tags: John Daly, 2018 Senior Open Championship. Tom Watson might be playing his last competitive rounds at St Andrews. The 68-year-old, who said farewell to the Open in 2015, is playing in the first Senior Open on the old course. He opened with a bogey-free 3 under 69 as he looks to win for the first time on the famed links. "I didn't make a 5 on the card today," Watson said. "That's the first time in, I don't know, a couple decades I've done that." Watson won golf's oldest major on 5 separate occasions, but never at the home of golf, where he's been trying since 1978. Field scores from the Senior Open: "I always remember what Jack said," he told reporters earlier this week. He said, "Your career is not complete unless you've won an Open Championship at St Andrews." In a sense, he's right. This is the oldest venue in golf. It would have been nice to have that feather in my cap. But I can't complain. I've got a few of them. Watson anticipates that this will be his final trip around the old course in competition. It's unclear when the Senior Open would return here, or if, by that point, he'd be competitive. "I know if I feel like I'm capable, I would play in it again here," Watson said. "I don't plan on hanging them up yet.